Written by C.B. Jones. The following contains a transcript from a short radio broadcast that has been picked up by various listeners across the continental United States. Many have been perplexed by its sudden appearance and how it seems to preempt whatever song or radio program they are listening to at the time. It has even been known to appear on streaming programs such as podcasts or Spotify. Listeners have described hearing different episodes, and there have been many different situations and incidents. They contact me with their stories. I received a call from a real estate investor from the greater Los Angeles area. His name was Ethan Finley, and he had heard the rules of the road broadcast while stuck in traffic. Due to the sprawling layout of Los Angeles and its reliance on car culture, his odds of experiencing an opportunity to follow the provided rule were higher than most. Perhaps he would have been better off in New York City. This is his story.
I love my Porsche. I know it's such a cliche. The hotshot real estate guy from Los Angeles, wearing his sunglasses and whipping his little red sports car into the parking spot. Even better if it's a parallel job, and jumping out to make a deal. I get that. I see the looks on their faces. I know what they're thinking. It's not like I'm totally oblivious. They're thinking this uppity douchebag, this total freaking tool in his Armani suit and his sunglasses and his Porsche. I can just see the slime glistening on him all the way from over here. But then they see the smile. They feel the handshake, the warmth, the sincerity. They think about how I'm going to make them some money, and then they're all mine. Why start at a disadvantage though? Couldn't I come off as more trustworthy from the get-go if I wasn't pulling up in a flashy little car? Maybe so, but then I wouldn't be getting to drive a Porsche around. Which, let me tell you bro, is a reward in and of itself. When you're whipping in and out of traffic on the 405, sliding in and out of impossible spaces, leaving everyone else to choke on your dust, you could give two shits about looking like a walking and talking cliche. I started out flipping residential properties. That's where I learned that I had the knack for this sort of thing. After a run of success with that, I transitioned into real estate development. I had some big wins right out of the get-go, with some properties that turned into offices for a few tech firms. So, yeah, I'm a developer. I like to think of it as speculations with a long view. I'm the guy who can turn blank into bank. Just give me the eyes. Lately, I've been doing a lot of consulting work with some firms out of China. They want my input on what they should buy, and need help getting through the red tape. They pay handsomely. You'd be surprised by how much American real estate is owned by China and other foreign investors. Meanwhile, there's people that can't afford their rent and a homelessness crisis going on, rows of tents along the streets and parking lots full of people living out of their cars. Yet the rules allow for it, and somebody keeps buying these places, so I keep making money. I can't help it if I'm lucky. Other folks, maybe not so much. I don't look inward much. I never had the need. But after all this started, I can't help but wonder if this whole thing is sort of payback for the part I've played in the gentrification of the city. With the cheaper housing that was knocked down to make way for expensive new condos and businesses, how many people had my deals displaced? How much history and character had I incidentally destroyed? At the time, I had considered it progress, and justified it by a steadfast belief in the rule that everything changes and nothing can stay the same. In this city, it's all about who you know. It's this whole culture of, what can you do for me? People know this, absorb this, embrace this. Luckily, I'm at the point where I don't have to worry about that anymore. Everyone else, they're the ones coming to me. They come with their hands out and their smiles and their attentive ears hanging on to every word. They wouldn't want to miss a crucial detail to pull out so they can impress me. The other thing about this city is that everyone's coming out here to make it big, whether it's showbiz or something else. There is constantly a new influx of people. These new people, they recognize me as one of the gatekeepers. They can see it on me, and when I go out, they want to get to know me. There is no shortages of places for me to go and meet up with these new arrivals. Cocktail mixers and parties and premieres, I rub elbows with a lot of show business types. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that I get lots of pussy, and lots of different pussy. It's a constant rotation in the new, and there has been no signs of it slowing down. Even as I've gotten older and a bit grayer, I'm still pulling down gals the same age as when I was younger. We have fun. They know the name of the game, and I'd say they get their money's worth. We have a whirlwind romance for a couple of weeks. Courtside Laker tickets, movie premieres, weekends at Catalina, the official private jet trip. That's about all I can stand. I can't sit still for too long with the same girl. I've been divorced once and it took me years to get built back up to where I was. No, I'm not gonna fall for that again. I'm not trying to brag in regards to my love life or my cool car or anything like that. Like I said, I'm actually aware of how all of this looks, especially now. I just wanted to paint the picture of what my life was like before I heard that cursed radio broadcast. I was on top of the world. Not the king of LA, but maybe like an earl or a duke, something like that. And then I found out about Buck Hensley. It was a bitch of a traffic jam on the 405. My Waze said there was a 10-car pileup 5 miles ahead. The exits were all congested. It was start, stop, rinse and repeat. The sun was beating down and the glares of light off of the other cars was cutting through my sunglasses. I had a property to look at in Venice, the next up-and-coming place. I was going to be late, and the double espresso I'd had earlier that morning was hitting me weird, making me frustrated and antsy. I was stuck behind a semi-trailer with dirty doors, and I was tired of listening to my podcast and was about to flick it off when, out of nowhere, Joe Rogan said over my speakers,
"Hey, Jamie, pull up the video of this guy, Ethan Finley. He's a real estate developer, and he's currently stuck in traffic. Yep, a Porsche Cayman. Oh, he's got the Amaranth Red. That's a sweet fucking car."
A chill went from the base of my neck to the small of my back, and I got goosebumps. I looked around frantically. Life was going on in the cars around me. People stared at the road or at their phones. A girl picked her nose surreptitiously. No one was looking at me or filming me. I rolled down the window and looked up at the sky. A helicopter, perhaps? Nothing.
Remember when his dad used to get drunk in the evenings? Hell, he'd come home already half-sauced, drink a little more, yell at the wife, slap Ethan in the head a little, and fall asleep in the recliner. There was this one episode I saw where Ethan tried to stand up to him. He should have waited until he was a little bigger. Pull it up. Watch this. So, Dad's passed out in the recliner. Ethan comes up behind him, goes for the rear naked choke, and boom! Dad body slams him. Look at that. See how his head dents the sheetrock?
Shut up! I yelled, looking around frantically. My heart was pounding. Tears had welled up in the corner of my eyes. I could vividly remember the scene that had just been described. All of those years of hell with my dad growing up. It was as if they were somehow watching a video of it and commentating on it. I stopped the podcast on my phone, but there was still something coming out of the speakers. A bunch of chimpanzees screaming. It got louder and louder and louder and stayed even when I turned the volume down and kicked the stereo. There was a burst of static and he began to talk.
Howdy, folks. How y'all doing this bright and sunny morning? Does it feel like you're rooted in place? Stuck at a standstill? Like your feet are in concrete and it's about to dry? Well, unless you're a movie star down at the Chinese theater, you best be keeping your appendages out of the wet cement. Whenever I find myself at a place like this, when time is standing still and all forward momentum has ceased, I just use that stillness to take a moment of quiet reflection. I reflect back on all the things I've done and all the things that I've undone. Could I redo the things I've done or redo the things I've undone? Or was I stuck doing those things at every point in time? I know I don't like doing things like I used to did, but I still undo things like I did before I stopped doing the things the way I did. What is that you do the way you did? Or do you not do that anymore?
I was breathing heavy and I was still stuck in place, cornered on all sides by traffic. I wanted to just jump out of my car and run, leave it abandoned here on the interstate, keys in it and everything. Let someone else take this cursed thing and its speakers playing this demonic drivel. I felt frozen in place though, dozens of suppressed memories of my father surfacing up from some tucked away corner of my brain.
Anyhow, where was I? Ah yes, I was talking about the importance of standing still on this special early morning edition of The Rules of the Road. Them good old boys down south knew the importance of stopping and smelling the roses. They knew you had to slow down every once in a while and take your time. That's why they never got in a hurry with the song Freebird. You know it's a very long song. Why, yes, I'm talking about the southern rock band Leonard Skinner. Good bunch of guys. They give me a personal show every now and then, and haven't missed a beat, even though the fella in charge of refueling their plane did. That's where today's rule of the road comes in. If at any point in your journey you hear the song Freebird, you must listen to it in its entirety. It is imperative that you do so. The whole thing. I'm talking guitar solo and outro and everything until fade out. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Buck, I'm a very busy man and my schedule is packed, and I mean packed to the gills. I gotta work my 9 to 5, but before that I gotta get up at 6 in the morning so I go practice my Bulgarian throat singing and milk the goats, and then I have to get my case assignment finished in time so Jenkins doesn't jump all over my hiney, the little twerp. And then after working my fingers to blood and pulp at the grindstone, I gotta take little Timmy to soccer practice and then have dinner with the family and then massage my little Mrs. Footsies. My, how those things have looked gnarly lately. And I mean rougher than sandpaper, but I don't know how to tell her. And then I gotta hit the hay, out like a light, only to wake up and do it all over again. I don't have time to listen to no song that has a 3-minute guitar solo. Time is money, and 3 minutes might as well be 1,000 smackers. And to that I say, fair enough. If you don't have time to finish Freebird, then you won't have time to finish anything else. You'll never finish another deal again. Ignore this rule at your own peril. Well, that's all I got for this morning. I hope the coffee is hitting you just right and the sun is shining bright and that California dreaming doesn't turn to any sort of California nightmare. Y'all have a good one now. Stay safe, stay lively, stay lonely. I'm Buck Hensley, and these are the rules of the road.
The stereo shut off and silence filled my car, soon to be followed by honking from behind me. I found that I had been staring at the passenger seat floorboards, and when I looked up at the traffic before me, it was moving steadily. I took the next exit and called to cancel my appointment, went home and took a Valium and nursed gin and tonics until I passed out. Life carried on the next few weeks without a hitch. I was consumed with work, and that was able to keep me distracted for the most part. I called my mom. It had been months. The weird stuff had brought her to my mind. She had landed well after the death of my dad, had remarried, and was retired and living her best life with my stepdad in Florida. I checked the Joe Rogan podcast episode list and didn't see anything unusual. I thought about listening to the most recent episode again to see if it had anything to say about me, but when I heard his voice, I got sick to my stomach. I got to thinking about what I had heard that day in the car and chalked it up to suppressed memories from the unresolved trauma from my childhood. I asked some of my friends and colleagues who their go-to shrinks were and got a laundry list of names and recommendations. Doctors who would prescribe the best drugs, spiritual gurus who would align my chakras, marijuana dispensaries that sold healing strains, and a gal in West Hollywood who could perform what was known as a trauma colonic. The weeks passed without incident. I buried myself in work. I made conference calls, attended business lunches, scoped out properties, and sealed a few deals. Maybe this all was a midlife crisis, a sort of sign that I should reassess my place in the universe and how I was living. How long could I go on like this? Making money hand over fist, a new girl every few weeks? Wasn't there a sort of emptiness to it all? These thoughts usually evaporated pretty easily when I hugged the curves of Mulholland in my beloved Porsche. Nothing like the force of 350 horsepower to throw you back into your seat and erase all of your self-doubt. So, in lieu of a trauma colonic or talking about my childhood to some stranger, I got in my Porsche and took off. The windows were down and the air was clear. I drove past rows of palms and strip malls and parking lots and little Mexican grocery stores and fast food restaurants, and homeless encampments, all the while keeping my eye out for places I would appreciate and value over time. The next big thing. I took Fairfax north and turned west on Hollywood, heading towards Laurel Canyon. Laurel Canyon, with its winding roads and seclusion, and where hippies once lived and partied and recorded some fine music. Now it's full of million-dollar homes, all thanks to the likes of people like yours truly. I was feeling good, and I absent-mindedly turned the satellite radio on. It had been a while since I had drove out this way, and I wanted to match the scenes of the 70s Laurel Canyon sound. That's when I heard it, the familiar opening. It starts with a Hammond B3 organ, these pleasant-sounding drones. Then the drums kick in, and shortly after, the slide guitar comes roaring out in front of the mix playing the Telltale riff. This is followed shortly by opening lines, "If I leave here tomorrow." I mean, we all know the song. And if you don't, then I suppose I envy you for getting to experience the American masterpiece for the first time with fresh ears. It's been overplayed for the rest of us. I instantly thought of the rules of the road when I heard it come on, and I cranked up the volume. It had been a long time since I had paid attention and actually listened to the song in its entirety. I vowed to finish the whole thing. What did I have to lose? For the briefest instant, I closed my eyes during the guitar solo and played a little air guitar on my steering wheel. Eyes open or not, it wouldn't have changed what happened next. It would have only allowed me an extra nanosecond to flinch at the inevitable collision with a truck that had pulled out in front of me as I topped the hill. The Porsche was totaled, and I was rattled and whiplashed, but not severely injured. I took a few days off to rest and recover and allow my black eye and swollen face to look more presentable. A contract I was close to closing on got hoovered up by a competing firm with a better offer. Even though I would spend the next couple of months trying to work and function and get back to the peak of what I was, and that was the closest I would ever get to finishing a deal again. There was something different about her. She wasn't a model or an aspiring actress. She had already made it, was a producer for Universal Studios, and in a way, she was into speculations like me, weighing risks and rewards for maximum payoff for the studios. She was responsible for finding the right project for the studios, turning blank into bank. We hit it off, and it was clear from the start this was going to be different than any of my more recent flings. We took things slowly, and that was fine with me. I enjoyed her company, and actually having a conversation and dinner drinks with her. It was fun to let this sexual tension just build for once, send each other flirtatious texts throughout the day. I had missed these kind of relationships, ones that were just more than sex. Everything built to a crescendo after a dinner at Spago, which, in hindsight, I didn't finish, and winding up back at her place. The little black dress she wore, the straps over her shoulders, the kissing in the foyer, the curve of her calf as she bent her leg and pulled her heels off, our clothes littering the hallway to her bedroom. There we were, on her bed, and she was topless, and on her knees while I laid back and admired her. The way her hair cascaded over her breasts, her hips flaring out like the bottom of a vase, her thighs touching and the line between them leading to the V of her mound. I was raring to go, and her visage in the lamplight was like nothing I had ever seen. She reached towards me, and I blasted all over the inside of my boxers, trying to hide the spasms and contractions of my body during my severely premature orgasm. The bewildered look on her face slowly giving way to disappointment is one I can still see to this very day, even after everything I've gone through. Being a little older and more mature, she was understanding. I only had to swallow my pride and know what she was really thinking of, despite her reassurances. I still feared that I was going to be a story she would tell the gals over lunch. The rich, hotshot real estate guy with premature ejaculation issues. But she gave me more chances. We continued to date, and the next attempt was complete opposite from my problem before. Pounding and pounding into her. I just could not finish. My dick felt like it was a million miles away, numb or something, like it was somebody else's. I ended up pretending I had an orgasm into the condom I wore and snuck off into the bathroom to douse my junk under cold water. Sure, she came during the session, but it only served to buy me a little more time with regards to our relationship, as the next few times we attempted sex were complete busts. I was limp-dicked and unable to perform, a problem I had never had before. She began to pull away from what had been a blossoming little relationship. Slowly and surely, she texted less and less and eventually just quit responding. What the kids nowadays call ghosting. I felt the closest thing to heartbreak that I had experienced in many years. It was raw and painful, and I realized that not only did I not ever finish having sex with her, I never felt the closure of something like a breakup. The relationship itself just never felt finished, man. As failures and falling outs began to mount at work, I began to notice other things. I seldom finished meals. At my favorite lounge, I left drinks half empty on the bar after I'd ordered them. I couldn't finish a movie or TV show. Even if I vowed that I would concentrate and see it until the end, which most times I just ended up failing on anyways, some outside force would cause it to stop prematurely. For instance, I went out with some colleagues to a premiere and there was a power outage at the theater, and they issued us rain checks. I went to see one of my favorite bands live at the Troubadour, and a freaking fire broke out in the middle of the opening number. With each passing day, it seemed to be getting worse. I found myself unable to finish sentences. Conversations lull into an awkward standstill as I zone out. Ethan? Ethan, are you with us? They ask. Oh, I say. Sorry. What was that? Forget finishing a book. I can't even finish an email or a memo. I try to dial numbers and I have to be sure and take a break halfway through. I can't finish my order at the coffee shop or restaurants. I carry a handwritten note for instances such as these and go to the same few places. Oh sure, I can finish some things every now and then, but it's almost like it's just enough for basic function. Just enough to piss you off. I'm surviving and all, but I wouldn't really call it living. I mean, every time I take a shit, I feel like I don't even get it all out. I haven't replaced the Porsche. All the insurance paperwork after the accident. Everything you need to do in order to buy a new car. I just haven't been able to finish it. I've hired a personal assistant and we're going to start chipping away at some of this stuff. Sometimes I just can't believe it. I'm 40 years old and already an invalid, basically requiring personal care like I've got dementia or something. I can no longer do what I was put here on this earth to do, you see? Sometimes I feel like this curse or whatever would have affected my body's vital processes and allowed me to just die. Unable to take a full breath or pump a complete heart chamber of blood. I've started and stopped this story so many times. In fact, I'm not even on the phone with you right now. This is a recording that I've been working on piece by piece for 3 goddamn weeks. I've no doubt left the room by now. I'll have to start some activity that I won't complete or even hope to finish. So yeah, I've just come back to record this last part, and you're gonna have to hang up at this point and give me a call back. Oh, there was one thing I was going to... I love my Porsche.
From there, the recording
it's a
stopped
cliché. The
and began
hotshot
to play
realistic
again
guy
from the
Los
beginning. I hung up the phone and called Ethan back. There was no answer. I called back several times to no avail, found his information on LinkedIn and tried to contact him through there with no success. It was several days before I heard anything. I received a call from a personal assistant. She had found my number among some of Ethan's personal effects, with the instructions to call me if anything had happened. And something had happened. Ethan had attempted suicide. He had put a revolver to his temple and pulled the trigger. A utility worker had been in the area at the time and had heard the gunshot and called the police. They managed to get to him to the hospital in time, where he was now on life support. Even in suicide, he was unable to complete the deed. They had managed to extubate him and he was breathing on his own, but he was unresponsive to any stimuli. There he was in that hospital bed, lying in a persistent vegetative state from a death he couldn't achieve, dreaming dreams he would never finish.